You have no business being in my shop. Hey, sweetheart. I'm talking to you. This is an active motor pool, not a tourist stop. You see those red lines on the deck? You're standing on one. Turn around, walk yourself out that wire, and don't come back unless somebody on my chain of command has got your name on a list. Let's go. The voice carried the 8 meters of bay, one and out through the open vehicle gate, and across the painted red boundary line, where the woman in plain green-on-green marine combat utilities was standing with a worn, dark green notebook in her left hand. The asphalt was already 91 degrees Fahrenheit at 0848 local. The sky over Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune was vivid blue. 4 MTVRs and a row of LAV-25s sat in numbered slots behind the line. Bay 1's roll-up door was open behind Master Gunnery Sergeant Errol Hatch, 51 years old, 28-year service stripes on his sleeve, coffee mug in his left hand. The woman absorbed the shout without a flicker. Her chest did not move for a 3 count. Then it did. "Good morning, Master Guns." She stepped off the red line, not toward the gate, into the bay aisle. Her hand brushed the corner of a parked MTVR's wheel hub as she passed, not to steady herself. By reflex, the way a maintainer touches metal she has already heard, Hatch read it as defiance. 8 meters down the bay, Lance Corporal Niall Drost, 22, and Lance Corporal Vasily Krieger, 20, had a wheel hub up on a sawhorse with a lug wrench across it. They both stopped turning. She walked to the wall opposite the wheel hub job. Tacked to the plywood was a laminated battery rotation log 6 months back. She ran the back of her knuckle down the laminated column for slot row B without looking at Hatch. "Master Guns, your slot B rotation skipped the 2nd week of February. Was the issue the rotation or the log?" Hatch closed the 8 meters in 5 steps. Sergeant Major Rourke Cienfuegos, 24 years in, stepped out of the battalion office door across the bay and stood in the doorway with his coffee. "I'm going to ask you one more time, ma'am. You are not on my access list. There is no defense liaison on my battalion's visitor manifest. You are interfering with shop operations, and you are leaving this motor pool right now." Her hand returned to her side. She turned to face him without raising her voice. "Yes, Master Guns." She walked deeper into Bay 1, not toward the gate. Drost looked up from the sawhorse as she passed. He registered the way she walked. Knees soft, weight even through both feet. The watch face on her left wrist turned to the inside of the wrist, the way pilots and operators wore them. The dark green notebook bookmarked on her left thumb at a page he could not see. The 48-page tablet, brief in a black case under her right arm. Krieger kept his hands on the lug wrench. She stopped 2 meters from the wheel hub on the sawhorse, listened for a beat, and addressed Drost at conversational volume. "Lance Corporal, spin that hub again for me, please." Drost looked at Krieger. Krieger looked at Hatch. Drost spun the hub. There was a rumble under the spin. Quiet. Low. Intermittent. "You've got a bad inner race. Write it up before you put it back on the truck." She did not wait for an answer. She walked past the hub toward Bay 2. Hatch's coffee mug was still in his left hand. The 2 Lance Corporals were looking at each other. "Anyone gives that woman a single piece of information, without it coming through me first," Hatch said to the Bay. "I will have your warrant pulled. Are we clear?" Drost looked at the hub. The rumble was still in his ear. Across the bay, in the doorway of the battalion office, Sergeant Major Cienfuegos set his coffee mug down on the doorframe ledge. He did not say anything. He noted the inward-facing watch. He noted the dark green notebook bookmarked on the thumb. He noted that the cover of the tablet under her right arm was the same 48-page Headquarters Marine Corps installations and logistics inspection brief he had seen on the regimental commander's desk last Friday. He picked up the desk phone and dialed Lieutenant Colonel Aoun's regimental meeting line. The phone rang out. He hung up. He picked up his coffee. He kept watching. Beaudry disappeared into Bay 2. Hatch stood in the middle of Bay 1 with his coffee in his left hand and his service stripes on his sleeve. Drozd held the wheel hub still on the sawhorse. The rumble was still under the spin. The bay sodium lamps overhead were off because the sun was up. The cold open shout still hung in the air over the red line at the gate. Cienfuegos watched her vanish into Bay 2. He logged the things he had seen. He logged the things he had not. She had not asked Hatch's name. She had not asked for the maintenance management officer. She had not opened the tablet. She had asked about a battery rotation log she could not have known to ask about from a manifest she should not have read. She had touched a wheel hub by reflex she had not had time to learn. The half-smile she had given him was a half-smile Cienfuegos had seen once before, in 2009, on a quiet senior NCO who had carried 2 Marines out of a burning vehicle in the Helmand outwash. The man had been quiet about it. The man had not had the half-smile until the bodies were on the bird. The man had had it then. He picked up his coffee. It was cold. He set it back down on the doorframe ledge. He picked up the desk phone again and dialed Ane's regimental meeting line. It rang out. He hung up. He did not pick up his coffee. He kept watching the empty doorway between Bay 1 and Bay 2, where the woman with the dark green notebook had walked through 4 minutes ago. Bay 1 was Hatch's. He stood in the middle of it. He had not had a woman in plain utilities walk past him into a deeper bay without his permission in 28 years. He did not know how to walk after her. He stayed in Bay 1. At 0911 local, Beaudry was in Bay 2 at the right front wheel of MTVR B217, palm flat on the hub, then crouched, ear 3 inches off the hub, then standing. Drozd had followed her with the suspect wheel hub still in his hand from Bay 1. "Lance Corporal, the right front on this truck. Spin it for me." Drozd spun it. The same rumble. Louder. More developed. 250 miles, maybe 300. Write it up before this truck leaves the wire. He wrote it up on a generic shop floor chit out of his cargo pocket. He signed it. He held it out. She did not take it. "Give it to the master guns. It is his shop." Drozd walked the chit back to Hatch. Hatch took it. Hatch read it. Hatch looked at Beaudry across the bay. Hatch put the chit in his cargo pocket. At 0934 local, Beaudry was in Bay 3 at a parked LAV 25 in slot LAV 09. Right palm flat on the left front tire. 5-second pause. Right palm on the right front. She read the 12-pound delta through her hand before she read the gauge. LAV 09. Left front 31 psi. Right front 43 psi. 12-pound delta. She wrote it on a sticky note and pressed the sticky note to the windshield. Check stem for slow bleed. She walked on. At 0951 local, Cienfuegos crossed the bay and leaned on a tool cabinet 2 slots from where she had stopped. He addressed her at conversational volume, the language of a senior NCO greeting another senior NCO. "Ma'am, may I ask what brings the defense liaison to a maintenance battalion on a Wednesday morning?" She did not look up from the notebook. "Looking at fleet readiness, Sergeant Major." "Sergeant Major Rourke Cienfuegos, Battalion, 24 years. "Pleasure to meet you, Sergeant Major." He waited. She did not offer a rank. She did not offer a unit. She offered him a quiet half-smile at the corner of her mouth that he had seen exactly one other time in his career, on the face of his first platoon sergeant, in the Helmand outwash in 2009. "Ma'am, that is a generous cover. Thank you, Sergeant Major." She closed the notebook on her thumb and walked toward Bay 4. At 10:18 local, she knelt at the differential housing of LAV 15 in Bay 4. Fingernail across the orange torque seal, mark on a flange bolt. Fingernail to her nose. The paint was fresh. Under a week. She opened the tablet, pulled up LAV 15's maintenance database entry. There was no record of LAV 15's differential being torqued in the last 14 months. She wrote it under her breath, half a word. Show me. She wrote the second sticky note. LAV 15. Diff housing torque seal postdates the database. Pull the bolt before this vehicle road marches. She pressed it to LAV 15's windshield 2 slots down from her first sticky note on LAV 09. At 10:27 local, Hatch walked Bay 3 with his coffee. He saw the sticky note on LAV 09's windshield. He tore it off, crumpled it, dropped it in the 55-gallon drum beside the bay door. He walked to Bay 4. He saw the sticky note on LAV 15's windshield. He tore it off, crumpled it, dropped it in the drum. He walked back to Bay 1. Cienfuegos had watched him do both. Cienfuegos did not say anything. Cienfuegos picked up the desk phone in the battalion office and dialed Aune's cell. Aune was in a regimental meeting. The phone rang out. Beaudry had not seen Hatch take the sticky notes. She was in Bay 4 with the tablet open on her knee, photographing the painted torque seal in macro at 3-inch intervals. The shop floor was quiet. The 2 crumpled sticky notes were at the bottom of the drum. The 2 cups of coffee in the battalion office doorway were going cold. At 11:12 local, Hatch called the shop floor together at the back of Bay 1. 11 Marines, 2 civilian contractors. He passed around a printout of Beaudry's visitor pass entry. Beaudry C. Defense liaison. No rank, no unit, no organization. We've got a wandering contractor on the lot. Nobody on the chain of command sent her. Nobody at the regiment has heard of her. Nobody at HQMC has a meeting with her. Until somebody with a name I recognize calls down here and tells me different. This woman is interfering with shop operations. She does not get a battery log. She does not get a maintenance database entry. She does not get a torque sheet. She does not get a chit. If she asks you a question, you tell her to come see me. Are we clear? The Bays answered. Drozd did not. Krieger did. Corporal Tessa Riverol, 25, the shop's database scheduler, stood in the back row with her arms crossed. At 11:24 local, Hatch pulled Riverol into the maintenance management office. Tessa, any database query under that visitor pass number? Give me the number. Comes through your screen. You flag it and you call me. Are we clear? Master Guns, the visitor pass system isn't tied to the maintenance database. There's no way to flag a query that way. Then write down anybody who asks for a query. When and what. Are we clear? Yes, Master Guns. She walked back to her terminal. She did not write anything down. At 11:46 local, Beaudry returned from the lunch chow hall. She walked to Bay 1. Drozd was at the wheel hub job. He looked her in the eye, opened his cargo pocket, took out a folded copy of the wheel-bearing chit he had written, and handed it to her. Signed and dated. Thank you, Lance Corporal. She tucked the chit into the back of her dark green notebook. Hatch saw the handoff from the second bay catwalk. His coffee mug stopped halfway to his mouth. At 12:08 local, Cienfuegos in the battalion office dialed On's cell a second time. On picked up. Sir, there is a visitor in the motor pool I think you want to walk in and see. What is the name on the pass, Sergeant Major? Beaudry. C. Defense liaison. 2 seconds of silence on the other end. Sergeant Major. Describe her. Cienfuegos described her. The inward-facing watch, the dark green notebook bookmarked on her thumb, the HQMC tablet brief under her arm, the way she touched metal she had already heard, the way she found the painted torque seal in Bay 4. Did she ask anyone about Operation Caprice? Did she ask about the heat shield grounding? No, sir. She did not. I will be there tomorrow morning. Do not call her anything in particular. Do not announce me. He hung up. At 12:41 local, Hatch walked back into the maintenance management office and called the base visitor center on the desk phone. This is Master Gunnery Sergeant Hatch. 2nd Maintenance Battalion Maintenance Chief. I need a defense liaison pass pulled. Immediate. Master Guns, what is the pass number? A pause on the other end. Okay, that one is an HQMC defense liaison hold. We can't pull it without a request signed by an 05 or above. You want to send a request up your chain. Forget it. He hung up. He stared at the wall. He picked up the desk phone again and dialed base safety. If a man has ever stood on your shop floor with his coffee in his left hand and his service stripes on his sleeve and decided your name did not belong on his list, you know the air this story is breathing. If this story is doing its work, leave a comment with the bay you stood in. Every comment gets read. And subscribe to Honor Tales. The next story drops tomorrow. At 1318 local, Hatch in the Maintenance Management Office filled out a standard shop floor safety incident form. He wrote that an unaccompanied civilian wearing utility uniform with no insignia, visitor pass Boudry, C. Defense liaison had been observed crossing an active red line shop floor boundary while a wheel hub torque wrench was under load on MTVR B217 at approximately 10:18 local. He wrote that the civilian had been given a verbal warning at 0851 and had continued to interfere with shop operations through the morning. He recommended immediate revocation of motor pool access and trespass action. He printed 2 copies. He carried them to Bay 1. At 1327 local, he found Krieger at the wheel hub. Lance Corporal Krieger, I need a witness signature on a shop floor safety incident. You good? Krieger read the form. The verbal warning timestamp was wrong by 27 minutes. The red line crossing was not what had happened. The torque wrench had not been under load. He looked at Hatch's service stripes. He signed. Hatch turned to Drozd. Lance Corporal Drozd, same form. You good? Master Guns, I was on the hub. The torque wrench was not under load. There was no red line crossing. Lance Corporal, I am asking you to witness an incident, not to write the report. Master Guns, I can't sign it. Hatch's coffee mug was empty. He stared at Drozd. Drozd did not move. Hatch turned and walked away with the Krieger signed copy. At 1335 local, Hatch returned to the Maintenance Management Office and scanned the Krieger signed copy into the shop computer to email to the Base Sergeant Major's office. He left the document open on his terminal while he walked out for a fresh coffee. Riverroll, at her terminal 6 feet away, saw the document open. She took a screenshot. She emailed the screenshot to her own personal address and to the battalion legal officer's office. She deleted the sent items folder. She closed the screenshot window. Hatch returned. He hit send. The email went out. At 14:02 local, Baudry was at Elav 31 in Bay 6. She ran the back of her knuckle along the differential housing. She found the second painted torque seal, transmission mounting bolt. She photographed it in macro on her tablet. She knelt and laid her palm flat on the deck plate of the lab's hull. She closed her eyes for a 3 count. She felt a vibration she should not have felt from a vehicle parked 38 hours. She stood up, walked around to the side, and laid her palm on the rear hull section, the same vibration's twin signature. She knelt and shone her tablet flashlight up into the intermediate shaft housing. Hairline crack along the coupling weld, 2.5 inches. She knew the pattern. At 1421 local, Hatch walked up to Bay 6. Baudry was on her knees with her flashlight in Elav 31's intermediate shaft housing. Ma'am, up. Now. You are off the lot. She stood. She closed her tablet. She turned to face him. Master Guns, one question. When was the last time the Lev in Bay 6 had its intermediate shaft, coupling, pulled and retorqued? Hatch did not have an answer. He had not personally laid hands on Lav 31's intermediate shaft in 14 months. The maintenance management officer was on leave. The records were in the database he had told Riverroll to flag. Ma'am, you are off the lot. Yes, Master Guns. She walked past him toward the bay door at conversational pace. She did not look back. Hatch in Bay 6, alone in front of LAV 31, with her flashlight beam still on the deck plate from where she had set it down. He looked at the intermediate shaft housing. He did not pick up the flashlight. He turned and walked back to the maintenance management office. At 1611 local, Cienfuegos walked across the bay to the maintenance management office. He stood at the door. Master Guns, what did you send to the base Sergeant Major's office at 1435? Sergeant Major, a shop floor safety incident. A civilian crossed a red line under load. Under load. In Bay 1 at 1435. Yes, Sergeant Major. Master Guns. The wheel hub job in Bay 1 finished at 1406. The next torque wrench under load event on the lot was the differential housing on LAV 15 at 1541. 2 bays over. There was nothing under load at 1435 in Bay 1. Hatch did not look up from the screen. Sergeant Major, the incident timestamp is the report time. The event was at 10:18. 10:18, the wheel hub was off the truck on a sawhorse, Master Guns. Hatch's mouse pointer was still on the open document. Master Guns, walk this back. No, Sergeant Major. Cienfuegos nodded once, slowly, and walked out of the maintenance management office. At 1623 local, he picked up the desk phone and dialed One's cell. Sir, I will not editorialize. You will want to see her in person tomorrow morning. Sergeant Major, tomorrow, 0830. I will park at the lot gate and walk in alone. Do not announce me. Yes, sir. Sergeant Major, the visitor pass. Are you certain about the C? Yes, sir. Thank you, Sergeant Major. In the regimental conference room across base, On set his cell phone face down on the laminate. He closed his portfolio. He looked at his coffee. He picked it up. He drank it. He closed his eyes for a 3 count. He had not seen Colonel Beaudry in person since the change of command ceremony at Camp Pendleton in 2019. He had served under her for 14 months as a captain. He had been an Operation Caprice supporting staff officer. In 2017, at 1st Marine Logistics Group at Camp Pendleton, Captain Aane, at 30 years old, had run the G3 maintenance staff section, morning, brief at 0700 local, for 14 consecutive months under Lieutenant Colonel Beaudry. She had asked him on the first morning to bring her 3 things by 0705. The previous day's deadline by equipment count, the previous day's fleet readiness percentage to 1 decimal place, and the previous day's number of safety incidents on the lot, in that order, every morning, without fail. He had brought her those 3 numbers 611 mornings in a row over 14 months. On the 612th morning, she had told him at conversational volume, "Captain, you have the rhythm. You will run a battalion in 8 years." 8 years had passed last month. He had taken battalion command 9 months ago. He had not been surprised. He had wanted her to walk into a clean motor pool on Friday morning at his in-brief. She had walked into his motor pool on Wednesday morning instead. She had found the things he had not. He did not call ahead. He did not text. He drank his coffee. At 1647, local, Riverole alone in the maintenance management office opened her bottom desk drawer. She took out a black plastic thumb drive marked R04 in silver marker. She plugged it into her terminal. She copied 6 months of folder entries. Master Gunnery Sergeant Hatch's false witness requests against Lance Corporals onto the thumb drive. She copied the screenshot from the afternoon. She unplugged the drive. She slipped it into her jacket pocket. She closed the terminal. She picked up her cover. She walked out. At 1658 local, Beaudry was in Bay 6. The bay was empty. The deck plate inspection panel on LAV 31's underbelly was off. She was lying on a creeper on her back, flashlight on her chest, tablet on her stomach, her right hand reaching up to feel along the crack on the intermediate shaft coupling weld. She breathed once, twice, 3 times. The crack ran 2.5 inches along the longitudinal weld and stopped at a small star-pattern stress fracture under the coupling collar. She had seen this exact pattern once before, 2014, on a different vehicle, in a different desert. Hello again. She closed her eyes for a 3 count. She slid out from under Lav 31 on the creeper. She stood. She tucked the tablet under her arm. She walked toward the visiting officer's quarters on foot. 600 meters across, base in the dusk. Riverol passed her on the sidewalk outside the motor pool gate, going the other way. Riverol did not look at her. She slowed just enough to drop the thumb drive into Boudry's jacket pocket without breaking stride. Boudry did not look down. She kept walking. What a Marine colonel finds at midnight on a creeper under a parked LAV 25 is the kind of thing the fleet never puts in a press release. If you want to know what the heat shield grounding cost a 3rd Marine Division readiness rate 11 years ago, stay with the story. And subscribe to Honor Tales. The next story drops tomorrow. At 2114 local, Boudry was in her assigned visiting officer's quarters at 1130 Reasoner Avenue. Single bed, small desk under a window facing east, dark green curtains drawn, PT clothes, gray t-shirt, black shorts, no socks. She opened her HQMC laptop. The lock screen photo was an M1A1 Abrams tank in a desert wash, side hatch open, the burn pattern around the heat shield mounting bracket clearly visible on the engine bay floor. White text overlay. Project Caprice. 2014. She typed her PIN. She opened the notebook on her lap to the page with the wheel-bearing chit from Drozd, the painted torque seal photographs, and the diagram of the cracked intermediate shaft coupling. The audience was shown 2014, a 3rd Marine Division desert training area. Major Boudry, 35 years old, CLB-3 maintenance officer, kneeling on a hangar floor with 3 M1A1 engine bay floors laid side by side on tarps. 3 small engine bay fires in 3 weeks. All after long road marches. The base maintenance contractor, the original equipment manufacturer rep, and the senior chief warrant officer had all written it up as heat-stressed crews and aged hoses. Boudry saw the same scorch radiating from the same heat shield mounting bracket on every tank. She traced the bracket back to its production batch number. She walked the data back through 11 months of records. She found 9 prior incidents the original equipment manufacturer had logged as operator-induced across 3 other deployments. The original equipment manufacturer's regional representative had been a sandy-haired man in a tan polo shirt and khakis named Carl Brevoort, 51, with an engineering degree from a school whose name she had not bothered to log. Brevoort had walked the 3 burn patterns with her in the hangar at 1400 local on the 18th day. He had crossed his arms across his polo shirt and explained at conversational volume that engine bay fires of this signature were operator-induced, that her Marines were over-throttling at Long March Red Line, that her platoon sergeants were not enforcing the 8-minute idle protocol, that the heat shield was not the issue. He had used the phrase operator-induced 4 times in 7 minutes. He had told her, with his arms still crossed, that if she pursued a heat shield batch, grounding the readiness rate on her division would drop 2 percentage points, and the political cost of that drop would fall on her name. She had thanked Brevoort. She had walked him out of the hangar at conversational pace. She had returned to the 3 burn patterns on the tarps and laid her right palm flat on the engine bay floor of the first tank for a 3 count. She had then laid her palm flat on the engine bay floor of the second tank for a 3 count. She had then laid her palm flat on the engine bay floor of the third tank for a 3 count. The same scorch pattern, the same place, the same shape, 3 different crews, 3 different platoon sergeants, 3 different 8-minute idle logs. She called Headquarters Marine Corps herself at 2300 local on a satellite phone from the maintenance Quonset. She requested an immediate grounding of every M1A1 tank with that batch's heat shield. The duty officer on the other end at 2300 Eastern Time had been Major Stephen Amati, the action officer for ground vehicle maintenance, who had asked her 3 questions and then asked her 1 more. Major Beaudry, the political cost. You know what it is. Yes, sir. Major, you are asking me to ground 212 tanks across 3 commands. Yes, sir. Major, you are asking me to do this on your name. Yes, sir. The line had been quiet for 3 seconds. Major Beaudry, I will run it up the chain inside the hour. Aye, sir. Ground the variant. I will sign it. Master Gunnery Sergeant Aldo Quesnel, then CLB-3 Maintenance Chief, 26 years in, walked into the Quonset with 2 cups of bad coffee. He heard the last sentence. He set the coffee on the field desk. Ma'am, I'll co-sign it. He did. 31 days, 212 tanks across 3 commands, 43 additional tanks in the same production batch identified at depot. The engineering investigation confirmed the defect and pulled the batch. The engineering report, never published outside Headquarters Marine Corps, projected 9 probable Marine deaths over the next 2 years, if the variant had kept rolling. Beaudry did not publish under her name. She shared the credit with Quesnel, with the original equipment manufacturer engineering team, with the CLB-3 mechanics who pulled every heat shield. She received the Bronze Star at a quiet ceremony at Camp Pendleton in March 2015. Quesnel stood next to her in the audience. In 2019, Quesnel retired. Beaudry, then a lieutenant colonel, handed him his retirement plaque. He said 1 sentence to her at the lectern, off mic. Audience did not hear it. Ma'am, keep finding it. She had. She closed the audience-only flashback. She opened the lid of the thumb drive case on the desk. She inserted Riverol's drive into the laptop. She opened the folder marked Hatch, False Witness, 6-month log. She read it. 6 months of false witness requests against Lance Corporals. Drozd had been on the list 3 times. Krieger had been on the list once. 2 civilian shop floor employees had been on the list. She read to the bottom. She closed the folder. She picked up her tablet. She turned to the page with the cracked LAV-31 intermediate shaft diagram. She drew a single line under the entry with her stylus. She wrote 2 words under the line. Show me. She closed the tablet. She closed the laptop. She turned the laptop face down on the desk. She turned off the desk lamp. A single rectangle of street lamp light through the curtain fell across the desk and the closed laptop. She sat in the dark for a 3 count, then stood up and walked to the bed and lay down on top of the covers without taking off her t-shirt. She did not sleep right away. She did not sleep poorly. She slept the sleep of a Marine who had the next morning's plan written down 2 pages back in the dark green notebook. At 0741 local on Thursday, Hatch handed Riverol a printed form in the maintenance management office. Corporal, I need a backdated witness entry on this form. Yesterday. 1541, Bay 4. The civilian crossed an active fueling lane during the LF-15 differential torque event. Master Guns, there was no active fueling lane in Bay 4 at 1541. The fueling truck was on the south apron. Corporal, I am asking for a witness signature, not a report. Master Guns, I can't sign it. Corporal, you are off the leadership track for this. Yes, Master Guns. She did not move. She did not sign. Her left hand was in her jacket pocket. The thumb drive was not there. The thumb drive was in Beaudry's pocket. There was nothing in her own pocket but her dignity. Hatch walked out. At 0814 local, Beaudry was in Bay 4 at Lev 31. The deck plate inspection panel was off. Drozd was on the Bay 4 floor holding a flashlight up into the intermediate shaft housing for her, his right knee on the concrete, his left hand bracing against the Alab's hull. Ma'am, right there? Right there, Lance Corporal. Hold it. She was on the creeper on her back, right hand reaching up to the crack, photographing the crack in macro at 3-inch intervals along its length, breathing on a 4 count. At 0819 local, Hatch walked into Bay 4. He saw Drozd on the floor with the flashlight. He saw Baudry's boots sticking out from under LAV 31. Lance Corporal Drozd, step away from the unauthorized civilian. Drozd held the flashlight. Lance Corporal, I gave you an order. Drozd held the flashlight. Lance Corporal Drozd, lower the flashlight and step back. Drozd held the flashlight. Hatch closed the 4 meters between them, reached down, and yanked the flashlight out of Drozd's hand. He threw its sidearm across the bay. The flashlight skittered on the concrete and rolled under an MTVR in slot, B217. Thank you, Lance Corporal. Baudry's voice came from under LAV 31 at conversational volume. Go pick up your flashlight. Drozd stood up. He walked across Bay 4. He bent down at MTVR B217 and retrieved the flashlight. He returned to LAV 31. He did not give the flashlight back to Hatch. He knelt back down and shone the beam back up into the intermediate shaft housing. Ma'am? Same spot? Same spot, Lance Corporal. Hatch looked at the back of Drozd's head. He looked at Baudry's boots. He looked at the open Bay 4 roll-up door. He looked at Cienfuegos, who had stepped silently into Bay 4 from the battalion office side. Sergeant Major, I have asked the civilian to leave this lot 3 times in 2 days. I have a base safety incident on file. I am escorting her off the lot. Master Guns, the incident on file. Walk this back. No, Sergeant Major. Hatch walked around to Baudry's feet. He knelt. He reached under LAV 31's hole and gripped her left elbow. He pulled. The creeper rolled. Baudry came out from under LAV 31 on her back on the creeper. She sat up. Hatch's hand was on her left elbow. She smiled at him. It wasn't a wide smile. It was not a victorious smile. It was the smile of a Marine who had been waiting for a man to make a decision he should not make. And the decision had been made. And the smile was for the decision, not for the man. Master Guns. She did not pull her arm away. She did not raise her voice. She did not say anything else. The flashlight in Drozd's hand was pointed up into the LAV 31 intermediate shaft housing. The beam was on the crack. The crack was 2.5 inches long. Drozd's left knee was bruised from the concrete. His right knee was bruised from the concrete. He had been holding the flashlight on the crack for 9 minutes. He kept holding it. Cienfuegos in the doorway watched Hatch's hand on Baudry's elbow. He did not move. He did not call out. He waited for the sound of the pickup truck at the gate. He heard it. He waited for the engine to cut. He heard it. He waited for the door to close. He heard it. He waited for the boots on the asphalt. He heard them. From the open Bay 4 roll-up door, sunlight fell across the asphalt outside. The engine of a battalion CO's pickup truck cut off in the distance. A door closed. Boots on asphalt at conversational pace. Lieutenant Colonel Jared On crossed the lot in service utilities with silver oak leaves on his collar and a battalion commander tab on his left chest, cover in his left hand. He had been on the lot for 90 seconds. He had parked his pickup at the gate. He had walked across the lot at conversational pace. He had been seen by exactly 4 people. None had called out to him. None had come to attention. He had not asked them to. He reached the open Bay 4 roll-up door. He stopped 1 step inside the bay's threshold. He read the situation in 3 beats. Beat 1. Baudry sitting up on a creeper at LAV 31. Tablet face down on her lap. Dark green notebook on the concrete beside her. Beat 2. Hatch kneeling on the concrete with his left hand on her left elbow. Beat 3. Drozd on his knees with a flashlight in his right hand, the beam shining straight up into the intermediate shaft housing of LAV 31. On removed his cover from his left hand. He tucked it under his left armpit. He came to attention. He raised his right hand to the brim of his head, fingers and thumb extended and joined, palm to the left, forearm at a 45-degree angle. Textbook salute. He held it. "Colonel Beaudry, ma'am." The bay floor did not move. Beaudry, sitting on the creeper, brought her right hand to her brim with the same precision. She held it for a 1 count. She dropped it. "Lieutenant Colonel On." He dropped his salute. He held his cover under his left armpit. He did not advance further into the bay. The bay floor in front of him was concrete, poured in 1994, sealed in 2008, resealed in 2017 on a work order On himself had signed as a captain at MLG. The yellow-painted lines on the deck had been laid down by Hatch's predecessor in 2011. The red boundary line at the open roll-up door had been painted by Hatch himself on the 2nd week of his tenure as maintenance chief in 2022. On knew this because the work order for the paint was in his battalion CO's files. He had signed the work order 3 weeks after taking battalion command. Hatch had been maintenance chief for 41 months. On had been battalion CO for 9 months. Beaudry had been deputy director, maintenance branch, headquarters Marine Corps installations, and logistics for 23 months. On did the arithmetic without thinking. The arithmetic produced no court-martial. The arithmetic produced a letter of counseling and a reassignment slip. He looked at Beaudry on the creeper. He looked at the tablet face down on her lap. He looked at the dark green notebook on the concrete. He looked at Drozd, still kneeling with the flashlight on the intermediate shaft housing. He did not look at Hatch. Hatch's hand was still on Beaudry's elbow. On turned his head 1 degree to the left. His eyes found Hatch's left hand on Beaudry's left elbow. He addressed Hatch at conversational volume. "Master Gunnery Sergeant Hatch, take your hand off Colonel Beaudry's arm, please." Hatch's hand opened. The hand dropped to his side. Hatch stood up. His face cycled. Confusion. What did the lieutenant colonel mean? Disbelief. There was no Colonel Beaudry in the manifest. Recognition. The manifest was for the Friday in brief, and the in brief was by the deputy director, maintenance branch, headquarters Marine Corps installations and logistics, and the deputy director was the woman whose elbow he had been gripping. He did not speak. His coffee mug was in his cargo pocket. He had forgotten it there at 0741 when he had been leaning on Riverroll. "Ma'am, I was not expecting you until tomorrow morning. I apologize for the welcome." "Lieutenant Colonel, walk with me." She stood up off the creeper. Drozd stood up. Drozd held the flashlight. Drozd did not know what to do with the flashlight. Beaudry took it from him at conversational pace, clicked it off, handed it back to him. "Lance Corporal, same spot. Hold it for the next maintenance officer on the bay floor." "Aye, ma'am." She walked toward the open bay 4 roll-up door. Anne stepped half a pace behind her left shoulder. He put his cover back on as he crossed the threshold. He kept the distance of a junior officer walking with his senior. 3 feet. Half pace back. He did this without thinking. He had done it before. "Sergeant Major, find Corporal Riverroll. The colonel wants to talk to her." "Aye, sir." Hatch was left alone in Bay 4. Drozd's flashlight was in Drozd's right hand. Drozd had gone back to LF 31. Drozd knelt and shone the flashlight back up into the intermediate shaft housing. He did not look at Hatch. The bay sodium lamp overhead was off because the sun was up. The bay floor was empty. The 2 tanks 1 bay over were empty. The maintenance management office was empty because Cienfuegos had just walked Riverroll out of it. The wheel hub on the sawhorse in Bay 1 was empty because Drozd had walked away from it 20 minutes ago. Hatch in the middle of his shop floor. Coffee mug in his cargo pocket. Name tape on his utility blouse. 28-year service stripes on his sleeve. His shop floor that was no longer his. He turned once in a slow circle and looked at the 4 bays. He did not move. At 0904 local, Beaudry, On, and Hatch were in the battalion CO's office on the second floor of the battalion headquarters annex, one window over the motor pool lot. On at his desk, Beaudry in the chair facing the desk, Hatch standing at parade rest in front of the desk, Cienfuegos at the door. Master Gunnery Sergeant, 3 questions. Yes, ma'am. When was the last time you personally laid your hands on the Lav 31 intermediate shaft in Bay 4? Ma'am. 14 months. When was the last time you signed a torque seal you did not personally witness? Ma'am. I do not know. Master Gunnery Sergeant, your job was never to keep people out of your motor pool. Your job was to know who was in it and what the fleet under your hands was actually doing. 2 of 3 is not a passing score. Hatch did not speak. Lieutenant Colonel, my recommendation. Letter of counseling. No court-martial. No Inspector General referral. No criminal charge. Reassignment to a maintenance instructor billet at the Marine Corps Logistics Operations Group at 29 Palms. The mentor of record will be Master Gunnery Sergeant Vin Caliburn, who retired from MLG 13 last year. The Master Gunnery Sergeant keeps his rank. He keeps his career. He loses his shop floor. He retrains 4 other maintenance chiefs over the next 18 months and signs his name to 4 torque seals on 4 bolts he has personally watched a Marine pull. On wrote it down. He signed the letter of counseling on the spot. Concur, ma'am. Aye, ma'am. There is a quieter kind of justice that does not need a court-martial and does not need an inspector general. It needs 1 senior officer who has done the work, 1 letter of counseling signed at conversational volume, and 1 cracked intermediate shaft pulled at dusk. If this is the kind of story you came here for, subscribe to Honor Tales. The next story drops tomorrow. At 0938 local, Cienfuegos walked Riverol into Anna's office. She came to attention. Corporal Riverol, the thumb drive. Ma'am. She did not say anything else. Beaudry reached into her left jacket pocket, took out the thumb drive marked R04, and set it on Anna's desk between them. Corporal Riverol, 3 refusals in 2 days, each one with no audience, each one with a real cost to you. Take this. She handed Riverol a headquarters Marine Corps installations and logistics director's coin. Silver, the size of a $50, eagle, globe, and anchor on the front. INL Maintenance stamped on the back. Aye, ma'am, she saluted. Beaudry returned the salute. Sergeant Major Cienfuegos, Lance Corporal Drozd. The wheel and tire shop has a junior leadership slot opening in July. I'd like to see the Lance Corporal in it. Aye, ma'am. Cienfuegos walked down the second-floor stairwell to the lot. He found Drozd in bay, 4 still kneeling at Lav 31 with the flashlight on the intermediate shaft housing. He told him at conversational volume that the wheel and tire shop slot was his in July. Drozd did not stand up. He did not put the flashlight down. He looked at Cienfuegos for a beat and said, Aye, Sergeant Major, and went back to holding the flashlight on the crack. The next maintenance officer on the bay floor had not arrived yet. Drozd intended to be still holding the flashlight when he did. Beaudry, in Annie's office on the second floor, watched this through the window over the lot. She did not say anything about it. She closed her dark green notebook on her thumb and turned to On. Lieutenant Colonel, the maintenance management officer comes off leave when? Friday, ma'am, the day of your formal in-brief. Lieutenant Colonel, move the in-brief to Monday. Give the maintenance management officer a quiet weekend with his family before he walks into the bays I just walked into. Aye, ma'am. At 10:42 local, Hatch was in the maintenance management office one last time. He emptied the desk drawer into a cardboard box. He took the coffee mug out of his cargo pocket and put it in the box. He picked up the letter of counseling from the desk. He folded it twice. He put it in his utility blouse left chest pocket. He picked up the box. He walked out. He did not look back at Bay 4. Riverol was at her terminal. She did not look up. She was not cruel about it. She was just at work. At 1947 local, Baudry and On walked the empty motor pool. Bay sodium lamps just flickering on. The sky over the East Coast going from blue to lavender to indigo. The 4 bays empty of personnel. Lav 31 and Bay 4, with its deck plate inspection panel back on. The crack still inside. The fleet readiness rate at 73%. The wheel hub on the Sawhorse in Bay. One back on MTVR B217 with the new inner race Drozd had installed that afternoon. They stopped at Bay 4. Ani looked at Lav 31. Baudry looked at Lav 31. 4 months, ma'am. 4 months, Lieutenant Colonel. We'll pull it tonight. Show me. She opened her tablet. She turned to the page with the cracked LAV 31 intermediate shaft diagram. The line was already drawn under the entry. The 2 words were already written. She did not write them again. She closed the tablet. She tucked it under her right arm. They walked back across the lot toward On's pickup. The bay sodium lamps came on full as they reached the gate. The red line at the gate was still there, faded a little. Paint chipped where boots had crossed it 10,000 times. She did not look back at the red line. She did not look back at Bay 4. She did not look back at the maintenance management office where Hatch was no longer sitting and where Riverol was at her terminal at work. She got into the passenger seat of Ani's pickup. The seat was a standard-issue Marine Corps GSA pickup bench, black vinyl, sun-bleached on the driver's side, a single ballpoint pen in the door pocket cubby. The dash had a small American flag decal on the right corner, over the airbag warning sticker. The cab smelled of stale coffee and asphalt dust. Ani's portfolio was on the bench seat between them. The portfolio held the signed letter of counseling, the reassignment slip, and the 7-page maintenance management officer's leave request that had sat on his desk for 2 weeks without his signature, because the maintenance management officer was the only senior officer in the battalion who had been pushing back on Hatch before today. On signed the leave request with his right hand on the steering wheel before he put the truck in gear. He laid the signed leave request on top of his portfolio. He put the truck in gear. He pulled out of the motor pool gate at conversational pace. The red line at the gate passed under the tires once on the way out and did not say anything about it. Baudry watched the 4 bays go by in the right side mirror as they drove out the lot. Bay 1's roll-up door was closing on a hydraulic timer. Bay 2's roll-up door was closing on the same timer. Bay 3's. Bay 4's. The bays closed one at a time, in order, exactly as the lot's standard end-of-day procedure had instructed them to for 12 years. He started the truck. They drove out the gate at conversational pace. Every soldier carries a story that few ever hear. Listen with your heart. Thank you for staying and watching. Subscribe to Honor Tales for more.